Thank you and good afternoon for joining us for part 3 of our 4-part educational ERP web series. Today we are going to give a quick series update and introduce our panelists for the day, and then we'll go ahead and talk about inventory forecasting and long-term planning, give some real-world examples, and then spend some time demoing this on Sage. And we'll finish up with some question and answers. Just a few housekeeping notes. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to submit those via chat or the Q&A section. And if we can work them in during the presentation, we will. Otherwise, we'll save those questions for the end. Those of you who have been with us for the series, this should look familiar. If you have missed the first 2, or if you want to go back, the recordings for the first 2 of those can be found online, and we'll send out a link to those after today's webcast. Today we're going to be talking about inventory forecasting, like I said, and long-term planning. We are thrilled to be joined by Tom Wilson. Tom's a product sales specialist for Sage Inventory Advisory, and you can see a little bit more on the screen about him. And we'll also be joined by Joel Schneider, who is the president at Liberty Technology Advisors. Liberty Technology Advisors is an independent consulting firm and specializing in ERP. You can read a little bit more about Joel there. With that, I think we're going to go ahead and patch Joel in, and we can get started.
Good afternoon, this is Joel Schneider. I hope everyone can hear me. Having some technical difficulties, but everyone should be able to hear me now. I'm Joel Schneider with Liberty Technology, and I believe Brad Robinson. Thank you very much for making those introductions. I'm just going to make sure Brad and everyone can hear me. So give me just 1 second here, and then we're going to get into inventory forecasting and long-term planning. Assuming everyone can hear me, let me just give you a quick overview of forecasting just to set the stage and go into some case studies and topics and let our friends from Sage continue. So forecasting is both simple and a complex subject. So forecasting can be used in supply chain to ensure that the right product is at the right place at the right time. So in the simplest terms, that's what forecasting is all about, to make sure you have the right product at the right place at the right time. And product doesn't necessarily mean the end product. It could be a component, a raw material, a sub-assembly that make your product for your distributor to make sure it's in inventory and is allocated and ready to be shipped out to a customer. You know, accurate forecasting will absolutely help manufacturers, distributors, multi-channel companies, whether you're retail, e-commerce only, etc., reduce excess inventory and thus increase profit margins. So if we could just do one last thought about inventory optimization, it's the trade-off between your inventory and service. The more inventory you have, the better customer service levels you're going to have, because you're going to have all the inventory available to meet your customer demand. Once again, raw material for production or the end user. The key goal of inventory optimization is to choose that level of service that you are willing to invest for each item, and if you have multiple locations, each locations. So companies that excel, no pun intended on the word excel, companies that excel in demand planning and forecasting are going to be more efficient, realize better returns on invested capital, and provide better service to its customers, and again, customers, end user, or internal in a manufacturing environment. So that's why forecasting is so important both in short-term and long-term planning. And just a couple other points before we get into some of the case studies that we're going to talk about. You know, there's a lot of talk about forecasting, and then that word has spread to sales and operations planning. S&OP is what it's called, which is more of a process that companies use to anticipate and synchronize the supply and demand with the financial components for their business. So it's all about balance. It's the balance between supply, demand, and your financial constraints, because no companies have unlimited money to buy inventory, to achieve that proper balance or level for alignment of inventory control to get those expected business results to meet your customer needs. So forecasting, to get right down to it, is the process of making predictions of the future based on past and present data that is available to you. So it's an art because it's formula-based. It's a science because it's formula-based, and an art because you have to take market intelligence as best you can and plug it into your forecasting model. So that, in a nutshell, is what forecasting is all about. The key benefits, of course, is increasing your customer service levels. And the other benefit, of course, is reducing your capital outlays and managing that balance. So some real-world examples. And I think if Brad's able to skip the page, and I'm just going to give him a second to do that.
Yep, we are, and we should be
okay,
all good.
Okay, good. So and I'm sensitive about the time. So some real-world examples. You know, we have a couple about clients that had too much capital tied up in inventory because of poor forecasting, stockouts, which is just the opposite, as well as seasonality and trends. And seasonality and trends is really an important part of this whole thing. Think about holiday seasons. At Halloween time, you have to make sure you have candy in stock for Halloween, but you don't want that candy sitting on your shelf 12 months out of the year either. So let's talk about a capital-intensive example about a client we have in Chicago that tied up a lot of their capital, which was cash, borrowed money, investments, and things like that, into inventory and did not plan on that sell-through. So they had excess inventory in the wrong product mix. So the other thing that is very important is all companies have more than one product, and there's variations of those products. So you want to make sure that when you invest in inventory, your forecasting models don't just say, I'm going to ship either 1 million units, but you break those units by customer and by product and by customer by period of time. That way you can spread your investment of inventory over time to produce that product, store it at the right time in the right locations, and meet your customer demands, because the last thing you want is a stock out. So when a customer says, ship me product XYZ, you don't have it. On the other hand, if they say ship XYZ and you have it, but then at the end of that period, you're sitting on your shelf, that's cash that's tied up that can be used for other reasons. So there happens to be a food manufacturing company here in Chicago that utilized too much of their excess cash, caused them other concerns because they weren't able to invest that cash in other productive uses. It was tied up in inventory. When it's tied up in inventory, it becomes excess inventory. And then unfortunately becomes obsolete inventory. And we all know what happens when you have obsolete inventory. You have to discard it or sell it at greatly reduced prices. So for them, it was, by the way, both end product as well as raw material. So that's an example of tying too much capital in inventory. And our folks from Sage could talk about how their system can alleviate that concern. Another one is stockouts. So I'm going to marry stockout seasonality trends in a couple of examples. There's a company that is both here and the United Kingdom. If you will, they're owned by the same parent company, so they're sister companies, that provided dancewear for dance teams, if you will, as well as cheerleader outfits. So if you could imagine, if you've got a child and they're in a dance recital and there's a dozen kids in that, they all need the same uniform, but in different sizes that need to be designed and manufactured with a lead time of 6 to 9 months because they're manufactured overseas. And you have to have it in the right style, the right color, the right size, and they all have to be the same. And you need really good forecasting, predict future trends of what is going to be in fashion. And imagine you're doing that all across the United States with thousands of dance teams, thousands of cheerleading teams that all need matching outfits. So the last thing you want to do is have 11 kids with a matching outfit and one child that just doesn't have that outfit. So forecasting was the number one concern because it had to do with what are the size and color and style that need to be done for thousands of kids around the country in different uniforms, et cetera. So in that case, we need to manage stockouts, because if you have a stockout, you're not going to sell 11 out of 12. You're going to sell 0 out of 12. So in this case, the forecasting system took into consideration historical trends, seasonality, long-term planning, but this is where that market intelligence and the salespeople applied their forecasts into the model to make those predictions as accurate as possible. So in that case, that was a very interesting case study. The company in the UK did the same thing, so we did that in the UK as well. Obviously different styles and outfits, but think about your child in dance. Very complex scenario because you don't want to disappoint a child. So a lot of pressure to make sure that that one child had the matching outfit in that child's size. So that was the other part about it. So it was a real interesting case study. And the other one, when it comes to trends, there's a client, a client in the northern suburbs of Chicago, way north, almost towards Wisconsin, that is in the restaurant supply business. And as you know, restaurants are always looking for the next great trend. And this is a distributor, they're a manufacturer and distributor that needed to come up with what is going to be the next big thing in restaurants. So it could be a plate style, not a traditional round plate, but maybe it's an oval plate or a rectangular plate. It could be the style of forks, of knives, and tableware, or what your French fries come in. Sometimes they come in a basket, which is the old-fashioned red square basket that we're all used to seeing. And then lately they're coming in a cone-shaped device that's very trendy. So for that organization, they had to predict the inventory for what's going to be trendy in a few months that they could then sell to their customers throughout the United States. So that forecasting system had a lot of salespeople intelligence, talking to customers and talking about what might be coming next. And then the buy, which is those products were made overseas, had to come in the right style. The right colors and the right product to meet those customer demands. And then they had to actually execute and sell so that style, that fashionable item, that new-fangled French fry holder doesn't sit on a shelf and never sells. So forecasting is both like I said before, forecasting is both an art and a science to make predictions of the future based on past and present data. Most commonly, which is by analysis of trends. So it's making predictions for the future. It's hard to predict the future, but new forecasting systems using analytical models really work. I mean, they truly work. And some of the things that Sage has brought to the table are some great tools to do that. And Brad, let me know, Is that a good overview and good case studies?
Yep, that, thank you very much. Yeah, that was great. And I think with that, we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Tom for him to show us just, you know, how those can be addressed on Sage.
Okay. Hey, bear with me 1 second. We'll just get. Hey, Brad, do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks, Joel. Thanks, Brad. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tom Wilson, and I work for Sage, and I'm what's called a product sales specialist, the Inventory Advisor solution. So my privilege to speak with you today. Hey, what I have is a very short PowerPoint. I'm talking 3 slides just to introduce a couple of concepts, and then I'm going to pull up a live instance of Inventory Advisor where we'll do a navigational tour, and we'll showcase a few of the things that Joel talked about, especially in the area of forecasting, both art and science. But let me start. I'm going to go to the next slide. Now, Inventory Advisor is an example of a connected service. And one of the things Sage is trying to do is to enhance the investment our customers have made in our ERP platforms, of which Enterprise Management is our flagship product, by offering solutions that complement or extend that investment. And more, our customers are asking that these extensions be deployed in a cloud or internet-enabled environment so that you can access it 24/7 from any device, any browser. But Inventory Advisor is a planning tool, an inventory planning tool that will tap into the rich transactional data that's in Enterprise Management, harness it, but pull it into an engine that's based on industry best practices and analytics for recommending inventory stocking and replenishment levels. So you can have many locations, many items, but for any location, any item, Inventory Advisor will show you what your current inventory is, recommend what it should be, given the demand for the item and lead time from the supplier compared to what's already in stock, what's already on order. It'll show you any items you have too much of, what impact that's having on your business, any items you're out of or about to run out of, what impact that could have on customer service or sales, and is there anything you need to make or buy to keep that inventory at the right levels. So Inventory Advisor, again, is a cloud-delivered service. So it will connect to your Sage Enterprise Management server and upload that transactional data, and then you will access the planning tool from any browser. But what Inventory Advisor is designed to do is to answer those 2 questions in those 2 green boxes. On the left, are there any items that have issues or problems at any location that need your attention? Hey, you have way too much of this item. You're carrying a lot of inventory that's tying up working capital. Hey, here's some items you are stocked out of or about to stock out of that could impact customer service or sales. So it'll alert you to items that have issues or problems. And then on the right, it will recommend any time you need to replenish. It'll recommend a work order for manufactured or assembled items. It'll recommend purchase orders for supplied items. And to do that, it does bring several capabilities to the table above and beyond anything in Enterprise Management. As Joel mentioned, starting on the right, a very robust forecast. Pretty hard to determine what your inventory should be unless you have a robust demand plan for that item. So it's a very robust forecast engine, and I'll showcase that in just a second. And then on the bottom left, it will identify every item, rank it based on its value to your business, as well as its inventory turns, so you can set appropriate replenishment policies. And what most of our customers tell us when they turn this on is of their existing inventory, typically 2 to 10% of that inventory is in some kind of a stocked out status. Either you're out of an item or about to run out of an item, which could impact customer service or sales. 10 to 15% of existing inventory is in some kind of a surplus or excess status, where you have more inventory than you need and money tied up in working capital that could be used for other things. And roughly half of a planner's time is not necessarily spent making planning decisions, but spent pulling together the information you need to make planning decisions. So this will support the planner. It will take that heavy lifting off their plate so they can spend their valuable time focused on the items that have issues, problems, and placing optimal orders. So with that, I am going to pull up a live instance of Inventory Advisor. Bear with me 1 second, but as you can see, I'm going to wiggle my cursor in the upper left. I am on a live instance of Inventory Advisor. It has connected to an Enterprise Management system and uploaded data. It has disconnected, gone through its analytics, and I am now a browser user. I am using Internet Explorer, but I've shown this exact same screen on my iPhone, iPad. Just depends on what browser and device is most convenient for you. I'm going to go ahead and shrink the menu bar so that you can see the full screen. And what I've pulled up is an individual item, and it is at one of my many stocking locations, which is my Los Angeles stocking location, and Inventory Advisor is going to plan by item, by location. So this item in Los Angeles, Inventory Advisor is going to show you what your current inventory is, which is literally data from Enterprise Management. And if you see here where it says stock on hand, right now I have none of this item in stock, so I am stocked out. In fact, I have 133 on back order. I have none that are allocated or promised to another purpose. So my available inventory right now is negative 133. So the bad news is I'm stocked out, I have some back orders. But hey, the good news, according to Sage Enterprise Management, I do have some on purchase order. And I have 1,080 on purchase order, and when those arrive, less my back orders, my inventory position will be 947. So because I am stocked out, it'd be nice to know when those orders are coming in. Well, we pulled that into one place. Let's go get some more data from Enterprise Management. What is the status of those items on PO? And according to Enterprise Management, I have 4 POs in the system. Here's when they were scheduled, ordered, and when they're supposed to arrive. So I have visibility to that information in one place. But the real power of Inventory Advisor is the ability to determine what your inventory should be. And as Joel said, that starts first and foremost with a forecast. So Inventory Advisor will automatically load from Enterprise Management the sales history for every item at every location. Now you can have up to 5 years. This particular item has 27 months of sales history, and that's represented graphically in blue. Inventory Advisor is going to compare that pattern in blue, and here's the science of the forecast. Inventory Advisor is going to compare that pattern in blue to 15 different forecast methods, and it's going to test each one. It's going to look at things like linear regression, exponential smoothing, sum of the year's digits. It's going to look for trends, spikes, outliers, and pattern in blue for this item, which is represented graphically in yellow. So everything in this panel happened automatically. Inventory Advisor loaded the sales history, selected the best forecasting method, and used it to create a computer-generated forecast. Now, if you want to drill into that yellow, and I'll do that in just a minute, you can make an adjustment, more of that artistic side of the forecast, you can make an adjustment. But in any event, Inventory Advisor will track how is that forecast doing against actual sales, and it will alert you to any item whose forecast is over or under forecasted. So a very robust forecast. Now, the next thing that Inventory Advisor is going to recommend is what is the minimum stock you should be carrying for this item. And the reason you want a minimum is things happen. Customers order more than you think. Suppliers don't always deliver on time. So you want a minimum to protect you from running out, but you don't want it so big that you start to see excess built up. Now, you can set a minimum stocking level yourself, but the question is, how did you calculate it, and how often do you update it, especially across hundreds and thousands of items, and even worse if you're in a multi-indented BOM structure? Well, Inventory Advisor is going to recommend that minimum stocking level for you, but based on several very dynamic inputs. And one of those is you might want to set a much more aggressive target for those items that contribute more to your business. This is an A item that's high turning, so you might want to set a much more aggressive target. It's always going to look at the lead time. How long does it take to get this item from the supplier? And we can import that from Enterprise Management, either at the item or supplier level. This item is 90 days. When you place an order for this item on this supplier, you can expect it to arrive in 90 days. But does it? Does this supplier deliver on time? Do they deliver the right quantity? Because if they don't, you should probably increase your safety stock. So Inventory Advisor is going to assess that risk. It's going to go get some more data from Enterprise Management, and it's going to pull it into my Supplier Performance tab. Does this supplier deliver on time? Do they deliver the right quantity? I can see this graphically, or here are the actual transactions from Enterprise Management. And it turns out that this supplier is doing pretty good. They're just about spot on the stated lead time. So pretty low risk they're not going to deliver on time. But based on all of that, Inventory Advisor is recommending that you keep 48 days of this item as your minimum or safety stock. Well, what in the world does that mean? Tom, I want to know how much of this item I need to stock and when I need to replenish. And that all happens in my policy panel. And Inventory Advisor is going to look at it in both days of coverage as well as units. So let's start with days. This is a simple and textbook equation. when you take your lead time, which was imported from enterprise management, and you add it to your safety stock, which was just calculated by Inventory Advisor, together that equals your reorder point. And the idea is you want to place an order a lead time before you hit your safety stock. So when you go below 138 days, trigger an order. The order you place depends on your cover forward period. You might want to set smaller, more frequent orders for your higher value items. So when you go for this item below 138 days, trigger an order. The order you place is to cover the next 30 days, which gets you to your max of 168 days. So in days of coverage, here is your minimum, here is your reorder point, and here is your maximum. But the question is, how does that transpose into units? How many units do you need to cover 90 days of lead time, to cover 48 days of safety stock? Well, it depends on my forecast over here. So based on this forecast, you need 586 units just to meet your demand over lead time. So now in units, driven off of a forecast, here is your recommended minimum stocking level, your reorder point, and your maximum stocking level. And Inventory Advisor does this every day for every item at every location. And then it's going to compare it to what your current inventory is. Well, again, I have 1,080 on PO. That's going to bring me up to 947. And right now, that's above your reorder point. So you don't need to place any additional orders. So right now, Inventory Advisor is recommending that you place no orders. But let's say we do want to look at that artistic side of the forecast. And let's say sales and marketing is giving us some information and we want to make an adjustment to that forecast. So I'm going to drill into that forecast. But before I do, remember that based on this forecast, my minimum, my demand over lead time is 586. And right now, I don't need to place any orders. But let's drill into that yellow. And I'm going to do that by clicking on my forecast tab. And at this level, I can see all 27 periods of sales history. I can see my computer-generated forecast graphically, and I can see the same information in the table. But I want to make an adjustment to that forecast. So let's peel back that onion a little bit. And at this level, I can see the exact same sales history. I can see the exact same statistical forecast generated by Inventory Advisor. But I now have the ability to go in and make an adjustment. And either the computer forecast or your adjustment will be promoted down to the final forecast. And I can check a box and type a number. Or another technique is I might want to select a range. So let's say sales and marketing is telling me we have a big promotion for this item. And over the next 90 days, 3 months, we want to increase the demand by, 20%. So let's take this little slider and let's drag it over to 20%. You can see my demand change down there. So I didn't try to outthink the computer profile, but I did want to put a 20% increase on it for the next 90 days. But sales and marketing is telling me that this promotion is going to be so great that in the next 30 days, I'm going to triple my demand. So in other words, I'm about to put a pretty significant spike in my demand. So let's apply that. And what you'll notice is a couple of things. Notice that my forecast in yellow, notice that that very beginning starts with a big spike. That's that 30-day spike. And the next 2 months, I've got that 20% increase. But look what that did to my numbers. My demand over that same 90-day lead time has gone way up. So my units has gone up. My reorder point's gone up. My max has gone up. My stock on hand hasn't changed. But now I am below the reorder point. And Inventory Advisor is recommending that you place an order on this item now. Why? Because my forecast has gone way up. So it's tightly connected. And Inventory Advisor does this every day for every item at every location. Now, we started with one item. Let me show you when you first log in the Inventory Advisor where you're going to see first. And it's what we call a dashboard, which is a high-level summary of all the items at this location. And if you have multiple locations, I can click and see those and toggle between them. But the idea of the dashboard, again, 100,000-foot view, is to answer that first question in that first green box. Are there items that have issues or problems and need your attention? And it's laid out in several panels. The first is called stock holding. And it shows that right now, in Los Angeles, you are carrying $10.4 million of inventory at your cost. The planning tool is recommending you should be carrying 5.4. It shows that you do have some excess stock. In fact, you have 2,000 items in excess, and that excess is costing your business $3.4 million. If I hover where it says full report, I can get an online report of all the items in excess. But out of all those items, on the dashboard, we're trying to bring your attention to the top 5. These are the 5 that have the biggest impact to your business, and resolving would have the biggest impact. You'll see a new list of 5, and then you can slowly start to work that excess inventory out of your business. But that's where you have too much right now. Hey, heads up. Here are some purchase orders or work orders in enterprise management. An inventory advisor has identified 417 items on order and is predicting that when they arrive are going to generate another 1.7 million in excess inventory. We call those surplus orders, and those would be orders you might want to review because they are candidates to maybe delay or even cancel the order. Now below that, we have the opposite side of the coin. Are there any items you don't have enough of? And in fact, there are some items in Los Angeles that you are completely out of, none in stock. There are 924 items that are stocked out, but there's demand on those items. So until you replenish, you're not able to fulfill that demand, and it could result in as much as $783,000 in lost sales. Doesn't mean you're going to lose a sale, but you are at risk. And again, I can look at all 924. Here again are the top 5. And then finally, heads up, here are some items that you're about to stock out of. These are items that you do have some inventory today, but we're predicting before you can replenish, you will run out. And when you do, you could lose some more sales. So day in the life of a planner, I can come in, toggle between locations, but for any location, I can very quickly see what my inventory is, what the planning tool recommends it should be, where do I have too much inventory, what impact is it having on my business, which are the most critical to pay some attention to, are there any items I'm out of or about to run out of, what impact could that have on customer service or sales, which are the most critical to pay some attention to. So from here, I could drill into a few of these items that were brought to my attention. I could get some information like we saw in that last item, make some decisions, or I could go straight to that second green box. Hey, Tom, just show me everything I need to buy. And with one click, show me every item that I need to order for my Los Angeles warehouse across all my suppliers, and here's the list. This is a list of every item that has triggered its reorder point broken out by supplier. So for instance, the consolidated tire supplier. Inventory advisor is recommending that you place 4 items on order. You may order 100 items from this supplier, but today 4 have triggered its reorder point. It's recommending 3,200 units. At your cost, it'll add up to $226,000. And if you have cubic feet in weight, it'll add that up, which might be helpful if you're trying to fill up a truck or a container. But as a purchasing or work order manager, if I want to review that recommendation, all I have to do is select the supplier. Ultimately, I want to create a PO. And if you follow my cursor, this is the recommended order for the consolidated tire supplier. For my Los Angeles stocking location, here are those same number of units, cost, weight. But now for each one of those items, Inventory Advisor will show you a summary of its forecast. It'll show you your lead time, replenishment stock, what's already on order. It's recommending 2,582 units. At your cost of $64, it'll add up to $165,000, and with a lead time in 90 days, you could expect this to arrive on May 22nd. Now, if that isn't enough information to validate the recommendation to place 2,500 on order, I can always drill into the detail. I can even open it in a new window. So I went from the order recommendation to the detail. Now, this item's kind of interesting. The reason I wanted to show you this item is it is a raw material. It goes into many different finished goods. So how much of this raw material to have in stock depends on the demand for all of the finished goods it goes into. So because we load the bill of material file from Enterprise Management, this item was flagged as being part of a BOM. It is a raw material. It goes into these 3 finished goods. How much of this item to stock depends on the demand for those finished goods it goes into. Let's switch that view. Here are those 3 finished goods. Inventory Advisor has loaded their sales history, generated a forecast that you can adjust. But for this first item, at a ratio of 3 to 1, I need 3 of this raw material to go into a single one of these BQ1855Cs. I therefore need 1.9 thousand of this raw material in the month of November just to meet the demand for this finished good. We'll do the same thing for all of the finished goods it goes into to give you your total bill of material demand. So I can drill in, drill down, get information. And you know what? After doing that, I am not comfortable with 2582. I want to bump that up to 2600. I tab out. And now any change I made is summarized down here. We just added 18 units, $1,100, and here's what the order would look like now. And I can continue to review the items that Inventory Advisor is recommending, drilling into detail if I want, but I'm using the analytics of Inventory Advisor together with my knowledge and expertise, and then I can place the order back to Enterprise Management. And what you'll start to see as you use a tool like this is you'll start to see your inventory trend towards the model. As you manage your excess stock, catch it before it happens, you'll start to reduce your excess inventory and free up working capital. And as I catch items before they stock out, place optimal orders, I'll start to see my stockouts reduce. And if I can reduce stockouts and improve customer service and sales, eliminate excess inventory and free up working capital, and give planners better, more timely information so they can focus their attention on the items that need their attention and place optimal orders, again, the return on investment can be quite substantial. So Brad, let me stop there and give it back to you.
Okay, so I do want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So if you do have questions, please go ahead, type those in now, and we'll address them in just a second. Just a quick overview on Liberty Technology Advisors. LTA is a 100% independent management consulting company focused on improving our clients' business performance, systems, and processes, and leveraging technology. We have a team of objective, experienced consultants who all average over 20 years of experience. And just a quick note on Sage. Sage brings affordable and flexible ERP solutions to the SMB market globally, with enterprise management as its premier product for the middle marketplace. And Sage offers companies a lifetime partnership through its products and services. Obviously, Inventory Advisor was a big highlight of today, at which it integrates with EM. If you did not get if you were not able to join us for the beginning of the series, recordings of the first 2 webcasts are available, and we'll send links to those as well as a link to today's recording later today. And we'll go ahead and also include a registration for the last webcast in the series, which will be March 7th. And we'll be talking about harnessing actionable data for informed decision making. So with that, let's kick back to Q&A. I know we did have 1 or 2 questions come in, and I want to be cognizant of people's time. So if you have to jump off, we appreciate that you are joining us, and definitely send us questions if they come up. But let's go ahead and answer some of these questions. The first one that came in, we need real-time visibility of our inventory from a sales perspective. Is the technology getting better to be able to see real-time inventory data from a smartphone, tablet, a remote, etc.? And can you give examples of how well, this looks like it's geared towards LTA, how you've helped customers in the past with that?
So Tom, let me take the first crack at that question and then to piggyback onto that. So, one of the things Tom said in the very beginning, whether it's Inventory Advisor, Sage Enterprise Management, he mentioned something that was really important, and that's anytime, anywhere, any device. So if you want to know what's happening with sales, and you're in a coffee shop and you're on an iPad or another portable device, you want to be able to just touch your screen and go to that. So the answer is yes. Modern ERP, inventory, forecasting systems all have the capability for any device, anytime, anywhere. As a matter of fact, that should be a key requirement for your system. Examples might be that we have clients just Monday, we were at a client in Lombard, Illinois, a western suburb, where they need to know sales information every minute of every day because their management team is scattered around the country, dozens and dozens and dozens of locations throughout the United States. So a manager in their, I'll just pick a city, their Peoria, Illinois location needs to know what their sales are with the centralized system and inventory information, yet their CFO, who's based in Atlanta, which is where he is, needs to know that information. And the key thing is the CFO is on the road all the time. He's visiting all their branches all the time. So it's a key requirement, and yes, modern systems can do that. Tom, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's pretty thorough. The only thing I would add is that yes, you can access Inventory Advisor from any browser, any device, but you can also access Enterprise Management from a web connection as well, where you can get real-time information right from Enterprise Management.
Great. Next question we have here is, how much sales history do you need to make the algorithms work properly?
Sure. So I'll take that one. So for Inventory Advisor, we like to see about 24 months. Now, we can take less sales history, but for that scientific forecast, we like to see about 24 months, the more the better, so that we can see trends, patterns, spikes, outliers, and then apply those 15 different forecasting profiles to see which is the best fit. So ideally, we'd like to see 2 years or more. If we have less, we can still generate a forecast, but it might be something based on maybe a simple moving average. So the more the better, but at least 24 months would be great.
And many times you might be introducing a new product, so you could use a forecasting system with a similar item and plug that data in and augment that new item or what you need with that art portion of it, where you have the salespeople out in the field saying, hey, I know Walmart's going to order 1,000 of these units every month for the next 12 months, and you could plug that true forecast in, not an analytical, and see what the model comes up with. So that's where you need both.
Great. All right. Here, last one, and then I want to just be aware of everyone's time. Can supply chain interdependencies for multi-echelon planning be supported by your product?
This is Tom. So yes, it absolutely can. So Inventory Advisor plans by item, by location, but I could have multiple locations. Those locations could be standalone and independent. Those locations can be dependent. In other words, you could have multiple locations that the demand rolls up to a central location, which will then plan either work orders or purchase orders on behalf, and then issue transfer and movement back to the remote locations. So absolutely, yes, multi-locations, multi-echelon.
Perfect. So with that, I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. If you do have more questions, please go ahead and reach out to either Liberty Tech. If it's more on the consulting side, definitely reach out to Liberty Technology Advisors. Our practice director, Joe Ambrose, is happy to field any phone calls or emails. His contact information is on the screen. If you are interested in learning more about Sage and either enterprise management or inventory advisors or their other products, reach out to Jeffrey Steinecker, regional sales manager. Jeff's information is on the screen. And again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you hanging in there with our technical difficulties at the beginning, but hopefully you found this webcast worthwhile, and we look forward to seeing you join us in 2 weeks for the final webcast of the series. Thanks for joining us, and thanks Tom and Joel for joining us as well.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.